So now we move on to actually trying to inflate the lungs, and you can see here I've just taken a quick break to set myself up with a short length of hose pipe. Excuse me. I'm going to try my very hardest to insert the hose pipe into the end of the trachea. That's this pipe here, and I'm going to really try and get it in there. It's very, very tricky because the diameter of the hose pipe is a little bit bigger than the inside diameter of the trachea, but I'm going to hold that there and blow into the end. Now what I'm expecting to happen is that this lung, the right lung, might inflate a tiny bit, but mostly all the air I blow in will come out of the holes that are surrounding this left lung that has been cut apart. So here we go. Okay, so there's a lot of air being escaping from these holes. You can actually see two tiny holes just here. Those are where the trachea splits off into the left lung, and unfortunately too much air is being lost from there for me to inflate the right lung. If I just try again. Can't see a lot happening there. Now, my only real chance of inflating this lung is going to be if I cut off the air supply to this lung. So I'm going to try and put some pressure on the bronchus, the tube that goes from the trachea off into the left lung, and I'm going to try and keep my hand on holding this on the trachea at the same time. So just got to feel around for the right tube. I think I've found it, and I'll keep that where it is, and hopefully we should be able to inflate this right hand lung. I'll do it one more time. You can hear a little bit of air escaping here and there where the lung must have been damaged, but we'll give it one more little try. So what's really interesting here is that you can see actually that there is separate lobes of the lungs. There's one lobe here, there's another lobe here, and the main lower lobe here. I'll do it just one more time so you can see those lobes as I inflate the lung. Now I find that quite amazing, really, really impressive, mostly because you can see how much each lung expands by. It's a huge amount. Obviously in real life that lung would be confined by the rib cage, so it might not expand quite that much. So I'm going to remove the hose pipe and put it to one side for the moment. Just leave it there for a moment, and we're going to look at the rest of the pluck we have here. So you can see here the left lung has already been slashed here, but actually there is something interesting that can come from this. You can see here this pipe, these two pipes exposed. Now those would branch off into smaller pipes called bronchioles, and then at the very end of the bronchioles would be little air sacs called alveoli, very tiny air sacs, and that's where the gas exchange takes place in the lungs. I'm actually going to just try and isolate the trachea and the two bronchi so you can see them a little bit more clearly. It might take me a little bit of time, but I might just be able to get there. I think it will be easier to use a slightly different implement to get through this. Now, if I had a slightly sharper pair of scissors, it would be a lot easier as well. Again, it's much easier with all the right equipment. I might try this pair. Let's go back to the knife. Okay, it's proving quite hard to do actually. I might just we go. I'm going to turn it over so we're looking at it from the back, and look, this is the esophagus. That's the food pipe here. I'm going to remove that so we can see the trachea a little bit more easily. I'm cutting the right bit here, aren't I? Yes, I think so, yeah. There's a lot of connective tissue in the way. Okay. In a minute I'll rearrange it so you can see it a lot more easily. At the moment it's not particularly helpful. Okay, a bit's going over here. Lovely. Okay, so here you can see a little bit more clearly. Let's just cut through this. See a little bit more clearly where the trachea goes down and branches off into the two lungs. Now if I just rearrange, you can see quite clearly a split in the trachea right about here. So one tube goes off into this, the right lung, and one tube goes off into the left lung. And actually we're just going to cut down the trachea just to expose the inside and give you an idea of what it looks like inside. Okay. Now it's quite hard work cutting through these cartilage rings because they're pretty tough. They're designed to be tough. And here you can see those cartilage rings a little bit more easily from the inside. I'm going to cut down into the left bronchus, and you should be able to see even more down there. Okay. I'm cutting down into the left lung. We're going quite a long way in. Okay. Now, it's hard for you to see, but looking there, you can see I've cut the tube open through all the cartilage, and you can see lots of little tubes that are leading off into different directions in the lungs there. And those tubes get progressively smaller until we get to the very ends, the tiny little air sacs at the ends called alveoli. And right at the bottom of the lung, I'm just going to cut this off, just at the extreme edges of the lungs, you should still be able to see, and hold this up to the camera, you should still be able to see a few very, very small tubes in there. Now if I squeeze this, it's quite kind of spongy. Obviously you can see that lungs are definitely not hollow. They're full of these tubes and air sacs everywhere. If I squeeze it, it feels kind of spongy, and if I really squeeze it, some air will escape and it will create a few bubbles that you might be able to see there. Okay. And those air bubbles are just bubbling a little bit of air through the blood that's still in the lungs. And it's quite slimy on the outside, but also quite spongy. It's a very unique texture. So that's those are the lungs. I'm just going to pause the video and we'll take a quick break.